Hey guys, Broke-Dad here. Today we're going to learn how to make a stuffed toy zoo. Stay tuned. I started by measuring the height of the project on a 2x2 of pine. After making a mark for the desired height, use a speed square to make a line to guide where you're going to saw. I used a hand saw for this to show that you don't really need any power tools for this type of project. You can of course use almost any powered saw to make these cuts if you wish. Clamp the wood to a level and sturdy surface. Line the saw blade to the marking line while using the tip of your thumb of your offhand as a fence. Once you've cut a groove for the blade to run, you can saw back and forth, keeping gentle pressure on the saw. If you find yourself forcing the saw, or if it binds up, you are not keeping your arm level. Try to imagine your arm as a piston that is mechanically moving back and forth in the same straight line every time. To make the top and bottom of the zoo, I used a thinner piece of pine. After measuring and marking, I used a circular saw to make my cuts a little quicker. If you're doing this with a hand saw, simply utilize the same technique as before. I made a total of 4 cuts with the 2x2s and 8 cuts with the thinner piece of pine. Now take all your pieces and sand them with a higher grit sandpaper, meaning 220 or higher. I chose to paint this piece with the light blue Rust-Oleum paint and primer in 1. Simply lay the pieces out on a piece of old cardboard and spray in long even strokes. Try to keep the paint can the same distance away from the piece the entire time. Once everything is dry, set the square pieces up to the thinner pieces and drill pilot holes with a drill bit that is slightly smaller than the screw that you will be using. If you want to make sure that the screws are in the same location on each side for aesthetics, then measure and mark with a pencil prior to drilling. Clear away the wood chips and follow up with the screws. You want to try to pick a screw that is long enough to go halfway into the receiving piece of wood. If possible, try to countersink the screws, meaning that the head of the screw sits under the plane of the piece it is being screwed into. This prevents the screws from snagging a little hand during play. Now attach the flat pieces to the already created sides by setting the ends together on a flat surface. Repeat the same process of drilling a pilot hole and following with a screw as before. Repeat this process until you have a complete cube. To make the bars of the zoo, I went with normal nylon rope. You could also do this with bungee type material, but it will be much more costly. I attached the rope using screws with wide heads. Simply attach one end of the rope on the inside of the cube. Hold the rope taut on the other end and attach to the piece. Now cut the excess rope away. I had originally painted the letter ZOO onto the piece, but I didn't like the depth of the letters. So I purchased some pre-cut wooden letters from a craft store and painted them with spray paint. Once dried, I applied an even coat of wood glue using a small brush to the back of each letter. I then set the letters onto the cube and placed a small weight over the letters to allow the glue to dry with pressure. Make sure the letters do not slide when placing the weight on them. When I was looking for the wooden letters, I came across these pre-made wooden animals. You could make these yourself with a scroll saw and paint, or cheat like I did. Simply glue the product onto the cube in the same fashion as the letters. Now you have a fun way to store stuffed toys. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of Broke-Dad. Be sure to like and subscribe to our videos.